Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of Japan's Do Not Search Iceberg, also known as Kensaku shite wa ikenai kotoba. If you're a viewer who has already watched parts 1 and 2, thank you so much, and I hope you're prepared to, continue. If you are a new viewer who has yet to watch parts 1 and 2, I highly recommend you do so. I do have a playlist, though it is not required. Regardless, I'm sure you're all familiar with the drill, so let's go ahead and get started with part 3 of Kensaku shite wa ikenai kotoba, the Iceberg. Though, before we get into all that, let's take a brief moment to talk about today's sponsor, Exter Wallets. Now, when it comes to me and wallets, I'm kinda lazy, and by lazy I mean I've had the same wallet since middle school, the 8th grade to be exact. Here it is. It's old, it's clunky, it's dirty. I've been in desperate need of a replacement for many, many years. And that, my friends, is why I am so happy to have discovered Exter and their sleek, clean, very stylish, and overall mature looking wallets. Exter wallets are both high quality and environmentally friendly. They're also very compact and can hold up to 12 cards and your cash. Now that I have my very mature Exter wallet, I don't think I'll need replacing my wallet again for a very long time, if ever. Overall, I am very impressed, and if you too would like your own Exter wallet, please check out the affiliate link in the pinned comment. From June 21st to August 23rd, Exter will be having their summer sale with up to 20% off select items. NNN Special Broadcast. A famous screamer video and Japanese urban legend that came about from a video uploaded to YouTube in August of 2007. The video is very vague, ominous, and filled with creepy stuff. It's best known for its Jeff the Killer jump scare towards the end of the video, though the video itself is over 5 minutes long. The video begins with 30 seconds of a no-signal screen, followed by a whole lot of off-putting music, industrial sepia-tone imagery, and an unexplained list of names alongside their ages, supposedly. It's at the very end of the video that we get a very spooky hallway, an even spookier kid, and then spooky Jeff jump scare. Another message then appears on the screen, a message that translates to "These will be tomorrow's victims," or "Ashita no giseisha wa kono katagata desu." There's also an additional message that basically says "Oyasumi nasai," which is a slightly formal and commonly used phrase that just means good night. In addition, this video predates the popular Jeff the Killer creepypasta. It's actually the first confirmed screamer video to include the Jeff image. Some speculate that the goodnight message at the end of the special broadcast inspired the Jeff in the Western creepypasta telling his victims to go to sleep. Who knows though? Following this upload, the NNN Special Broadcast mystery became quite popular on 2chan. 2chan is where urban legends and creepypastas especially started to come about as people discussed what all this could mean and what the lore could entail. There are different variants of the legend, but it usually goes like this. At the end of a TV's daily broadcast late at night after the station will sign off and the color bars will have officially appeared for some time, the NNN Special Broadcast will come on. Some versions state it comes on randomly if you watch TV late at night, however. Once on, the special broadcast will list the names of tomorrow's victims. According to the version of the legend you're reading, the reader may also be unable to change the channel. Another element of the story is that the very last name in the credit roll style list will be your own name. All of these names will be tomorrow's victims, yours included. It is inferred that your name is added to this list due to watching the special broadcast. On another note, this video style is a parody of Japan's NNN emergency broadcasts. NNN is short for Nippon News Network. Yutaka Ozaki. Friday. If you've never heard of Yutaka Ozaki, please pause this video, put it under watch later, whatever, and look up some of his music. This man had a great deal of talent and was clearly very passionate about his music. Watch just one of his live performances and just observe his sheer talent. He came into the scene in the 1980s in a scene oversaturated by Showa idols, but he himself was not one. He was just someone who worked his way up based on his talent rather than a pre-made image. Yutaka Ozaki began writing poetry and playing piano and had his first performance at his school's annual festival. Despite that, his looks and romantic ballads made him very popular with girls nonetheless. He also had a lot of raw, teen angst-filled music that drew a lot of attention to things Ozaki found unjust in Japanese society. Ozaki was discovered and signed to CBS Sony in 1983 and had a very successful career up until 1992. He is a favorite musician by many Japanese performers today, and many have covered his song, I Love You. This includes big names like Akira Nakamori, Hikaru Utada, and even an English cover by American 80s idol Debbie Gibson. However, this is another performer who also passed away at a very young age. This man was only 26 years old when he passed, and the events leading up to his death aren't exactly clear. What's known is the following. On the night of April 25, 1992, Ozaki was found drunk and unconscious in an alleyway in Tokyo. He was also completely naked. The reason for this was never found out. So, Ozaki was taken to the hospital, treated, but then left the hospital not too long after. Only a few hours after his discharge, he died from pulmonary edema, which is an accumulation of fluid in the lungs that prevents accurate oxygen intake. So, it is known how he died, but the way the pulmonary edema came about is certainly up for debate. This kind of ailment can be caused by things like heart failure and pneumonia, but let's just say that not a whole lot of people in their mid-20s die from things like heart failure and pneumonia. Another possible reason for pulmonary edema can be trauma to the chest's wall. I even confirmed this last one with one of my best friends who happens to be a registered nurse. And because of this last mentioned reason, many speculate that Ozaki was murdered. Now, the search term. Friday is a Japanese publication where photos were released in 1999. This was 7 years after Ozaki's death. The issue featured many photos of Ozaki, but the most impactful and informative of them are definitely those taken close to or following his death. From these photos, it can be clearly seen that this man was severely beaten and not at all in good shape. The release of these photos left many questions as well as saddened Ozaki's many fans. To this day, it is claimed that the pulmonary edema came about from excessive use of stimulants, but looking at these photos, I do find that somewhat hard to believe. Ozaki is survived by his wife Shigemi and son Hiroya. His son is also a musician and was only 2 years old when his father passed. ID photo of Kaa-Chan. The lore behind this one isn't as creepy as you'd think, but gosh dang is that image unpleasant. Kaa-Chan is a term of endearment for someone's mother. It's short for Oka-san, which means mother, but can only be used if it's your mother and you're addressing her. In any other context, the word for mother is haha. The origin of the Kaa-Chan ID photo image is from a thread where someone faxed a photo of their mother and it came out looking very creepy and unsettling. For this reason, Kaa-Chan's ID photo is a somewhat popular horror image in Japan. To my knowledge, the OP claims the photo came out looking like this because they selected a monochrome setting on their fax machine. The Passion of the Christ. This is in reference to the famous 2004 film directed by Mel Gibson that followed a dramatized recreation of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. I'm assuming that Japan sees this as unsearchable due to the graphic violence of the original theatrical cut. This is basically the violence and gore surrounding the torture and crucifixion of Jesus. Even critics of the time described this film as more of a downer than spiritual or impactful in any way, just really unpleasant and sad. There was an edited version of the film, later re-released in 2005 due to this, and lacks the especially graphic scenes. I remember a lot of people talking about this film when I was a kid, but it didn't get great reception from critics and currently has a Rotten Tomatoes score of only 49%. There's plenty of info on this movie online, including Mel Gibson's racist comments he made following working on this film that kinda sorta ruined his career. I've never seen the film myself. I've only seen the South Park episode parodying it. Why can't I say that word? I love Kotoha sisters. The Kotoha sisters are voiceroid characters. Not Vocaloid, but voiceroid, which is a software for speech, but not for singing as Vocaloid characters like Hatsune Miku are known for. Visually, they don't really have much to do with this video. Where do I even begin with this, though? It's a Nico Nico upload from 2013, and wow, it has a lot of flashing lights. I'm not even going to show any of this because I don't want to give any of my viewers seizures. They're pretty abrasive. There's also this face, which is from the Have You Dreamed of This Man webpage thing from 2008. That's a rabbit hole in itself. And then there's this thing that says it's a fried monbol, which is a type of fish from the kanji I see used. It uses the fish kanji. The video has a lot going on, like the flashing lights and such, and the video ends with a woman screaming, and from what I have read, this voice clip traces back to Sad Satan, which is a PC horror game, which is pretty well known, also another rabbit hole. Anyways, this video, from what I'm reading on it, appears to have been made to celebrate the birthday of the Kotoha sisters. The end message specifically congratulates the Kotoha sisters and wishes them success and health in the future, as it glitches out a lot. Also, there's broccoli. The meaning of all this, aside from the birthday message to the anime girls, is likely just to be creepy and impactful. If there's another hidden meaning aside from that, then damn. Japan Airlines Flight 123. This is the name of a catastrophic Japan Airlines crash that occurred in 1985. This flight is still, to this day, the deadliest single aircraft accident in all of aviation history. 520 of the 524 people on board died. This includes famous Japanese singer Kyu Sakamoto and his wife. The aircraft itself was registered as JA8119 and had many successful flights prior to this incident. The plane had actually been active since 1974 and had flown over 18,000 times when considering its recorded flight cycles. For those of you unaware, a flight cycle is essentially when the plane takes off, has successful compression, and then lands successfully. The aircraft's final flight began at 6:04 p.m. on August 12th of 1985. This is the time of year when Obon takes place throughout Japan, which is a celebration to pay respects to deceased family and ancestors. Many people in Japan will travel to see family around this time for that reason, and many aboard the aircraft were thought to be traveling for this reason. There were some foreign passengers aboard as well, however. The flight was intended to be fairly short, traveling from Tokyo's Haneda Airport to Osaka. It was only 12 minutes into this flight where malfunctions began to occur, however. This aircraft had also suffered damage to the tail in 1978. This damage was not properly maintained and resulted in the tail itself falling off completely early in the flight. The plane then faced what is referred to as rapid decompression. This is basically when there is an issue in the sealing of the aircraft and the environment inside is no longer secure and safe. This caused the ceiling of the aircraft to cave in the restrooms before issues only continued to worsen. The crew began issuing distress signals and was allowed to turn around and attempt an emergency landing back at Haneda. Despite receiving this permission, the aircraft became rapidly uncontrollable due to the pressure malfunction continuing to worsen and drop the hydraulic pressure. Eventually, the hydraulic fluid was completely emptied and the plane was now gaining and losing altitude without any chance of regaining control. The flight crew remained in contact with Tokyo Control throughout their futile attempts and confirmed that they could not steer the plane back to Haneda. Despite knowing this plane was totally out of control, those tasked with flying this aircraft attempted to steer and slow the plane up until the time of impact. The final words of the captain were "mo dame," which essentially means there is no use and nothing more that can be done. This impact took place at 6:56 p.m. near Mount Mikuni of Gunma Prefecture. The official exact reason for the crash was in-flight structural failure due to improper maintenance leading to rapid decompression and loss of control systems exacerbated by hypoxia. I am not a fluent in how planes work, though I do know enough to understand that this could have been prevented, and for that reason I find this tragedy especially saddening. As I said, 4 people did survive the crash, which is a miracle in itself considering this plane at one point dropped 10,000 feet in just about a minute, and then later crashed into a mountain. It is very possible that more survivors could have been rescued, though the delayed rescue efforts may be to blame if more people could have been saved. See, the United States Air Force had also heard the distress signals and were going to provide rescue assistance, but were told not to interfere by the Japanese government. Help did not reach the crash site until a full 14 hours after the accident the very next morning. For this reason, it is likely that some people passed away due to exposure to the elements rather than the impact itself. Now, Japan Airlines Flight 123 is unsearchable for a number of reasons. There's audio of the crew speaking with Tokyo Control on YouTube and ultimately stating that there's nothing they can do at the very end. There are photos recovered showing the passengers before the impact of the crash as well. There are also plenty of images of the recovery efforts following the crash. These latter photos show the massive scale of this aircraft and also the mass amount of people who died within it. One positive note is that the children of both the pilot and co-pilot of Japan Airlines Flight 123 did eventually grow up to fly aircrafts just like their fathers. The Museum of Tattooed Skin. Pretty gnarly, but also very fascinating. Futoshi Matsunaga was a Japanese pathologist who honed his studies in on research pertaining to pigment in the skin, as well as cancers and diseases that relate to it. Matsunaga was very passionate about the action of tattooing. From a scholarly standpoint, he did not have tattoos himself, and hypothesized that inserting pigment could possibly treat certain types of STDs such as syphilis, as well as thyroid issues. He actually ended up being correct about the syphilis part. Motivated by his studies, Matsunaga began a lifelong pursuit of obtaining tattooed skin to study. How did he achieve this? Well, he reached out to many yakuza of the time and brought forward an interesting offer. In exchange for the donation of their skin after death, Matsunaga would provide funding and assistance in completing their elaborate body tattoos. One particularly striking set of imagery from this study are these 2 pictures. Notice the tattoo of one of the yakuza pictured. Years later, this photo was taken of their skin following their death. After making this conclusion, I myself could not help but get chills. The tattoos were once held at a public exhibit within the University of Tokyo. These specimens are no longer available to view by the general public due to the prioritization of preserving the specimens themselves. In addition, because this study had begun prior to World War II, some of the samples that were collected in the early days of the study were destroyed due to bombings. That means these skins were lost and never preserved at all, though a good number were obtained in the years following the war. As somebody who does not have tattoos themselves, though is fascinated by Japanese irezumi tattoos and how the yakuza uses them to symbolize certain traits of the person who possesses them, I do find this very interesting, though searching these images up and actually seeing them for the first time can be a little jarring. Matsunaga passed away in June of 1956 at the age of 78. Fukushi's studies continued beyond his death as his son, who was also a pathologist, continued collecting samples and studying them. Shoujo Tsubaki. This is a very disturbing 1920s kamishibai, 1980s manga, and 1990s anime film. Oh, and there's also a recent live-action film, not really sure how they made that work. This work is so disturbing, in fact, that the animated film is banned in Japan to an extent, and also started a TikTok trend where people just warn you not to watch it because of how horrible it is. Shoujo Tsubaki, also known as Midori, is a very well-known eroguro piece, this word, eroguro, being a genre of erotic gore anime. The subject matter of this anime actually caused Hiroshi Harada, the creator of the animated film, to experience great difficulties when looking for funding assistance to produce the work. In short, nobody wanted to fund an anime with such unnerving subject matter. This ultimately resulted in them using their personal savings to see the project through. This subject matter is truly filled to the brim with things many find quite disheartening. The film begins with an optimistic, young, underage girl named Midori. She leads a normal life and it's void of any trauma and hardship until tragedy strikes when her father leaves. Her mother becomes ill and Midori takes to selling flowers on the street. From here, she meets a man who offers to help her if she ever needs it. Following this, Midori returns home to find that her mother has passed on. Midori then finds the man again at a circus that he runs. From here, some really horrible abuse scenes take place involving Midori and the circus workers. Midori joins the circus and later meets a much older man who basically grooms and marries her. These scenes are pretty disgusting. Midori begins attempting to stand up for herself around her abusers at the circus, which does not end well at all. Midori's husband then sees one of the circus workers confess their love to Midori, which I remind you is a child. Midori witnesses her husband murder this man, which results in Midori losing her trust in her husband. This then results in more abuse towards Midori. The film ends with the husband and Midori leaving the circus and Midori eventually being left alone again as the husband is murdered shortly after them leaving. This is when Midori finally reaches a breaking point and enters a state of insanity. The end. Some have suggested that Saki Sanobashi, that supposed lost deep web anime, to be Shoujo Tsubaki. It really does not have any similarities other than it being Guro, so I don't see why it was ever suggested to begin with. I personally wish I didn't watch this film for the sake of this video. It's gross and sad and overall very unpleasant. I don't feel any kind of fulfillment from watching it. I just feel kind of empty. If you all like gory, sad anime, don't watch this. Just don't. It's not worth it. Go watch something good like Berserk or Tomie or Uzumaki. Those last two are manga, but read them. Just don't watch this. It's gross. Persephone Number Station. A creepy YouTube video from 2007 that is meant to correlate with the television show Lost in that it was part of an ARG called The Lost Experience. Most of the web pages for this ARG are no longer live, though this video remains up and its spookiness still impactful to the point where this specific video reached Japan and became notorious in its own right. I personally have seen this visual of the woman and her glitches being used in other videos, specifically on platforms like Nico Nico. Shinrikyo Brainwashing Video. This is a fairly well-known Japanese cult. They're mostly known for setting off multiple gas containers in a Tokyo subway in 1995. This attack killed 13 people. Following this attack and notoriety of the Shinrikyo cult, which had attained thousands of followers by this point, the brainwashing video used on new recruits had surfaced and made its way online. It's pretty uncomfortable. If you want to know all the details of this absolutely heinous cult, I recommend this video by Aki Dearest. She's already covered everything you need to know about them and does it incredibly well. Public Toilet House. It's likely that many of you watching have encountered a public bathroom in a park, campsite, gas station, even somewhere like a restaurant that was just absolutely appalling. This search term brings up a public restroom that is god-tier appalling. Somewhere you would likely contract a disease if you used anything within it. Where is this bathroom? I cannot find where this bathroom is, but mainly the search term is just this. Goosh Goosh. This is a brief clip from an anime I have never heard of titled Tokyo Tribe 2. This scene is known by both Japanese and Western anime fans for its shocking depiction of a large man murdering another man by sheer penetration alone. It's a very unpleasant way for this dude to die, and it's not fun to look at either. People are going on and on about anime like Boku no Pico, but at this point this should be the new trash people recommend for the lulz. That is, if the anime is full of garbage like this, I don't know. Kenpo-Kun. Like Jeff the Killer? Well, here he is again, folks. He's kind of a creepy imagery staple in Japan. In this strange instance, there are videos that modify the mascot of a health insurance company with his face, as in Jeff's face. Other stuff will be featured in these Kenpo-Kun videos as well, including a shot of a larger man in a bikini and characters from the anime K-On! I think Jeff is the main reason why this is considered unsearchable, though the article warns people of the man in the bikini in bold text, specifically, so I feel like that was mentally scarring to whoever wrote this article. There's also vague information suggesting that this video trend was also addressing Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which specifically bans the use of war to settle disputes. Some of the videos have audio reading the law or just saying the 9th Amendment. I don't know, it's very weird. I don't know if the videos are for it, against it, or just fucking with people. I've seen a lot of weird Japanese stuff, maybe I'm missing the point here, but this trend is so odd to me. Maybe I just have to have been there to understand what's actually going on. Zombieflesheater. This is the name of a musical artist known for their music video with intense and grotesque visuals. According to their Bandcamp, they've been active since at least 2005 and had performed as late as 2018. At least that was the latest promotional post I could personally find. Now, as far as genre, I'm not really sure where to place this. You know how loud those MLG meme compilations were, like back when those were a thing? Remember how they would be ungodly levels of loud? YTPs did this too. Well, it kinda sounds like that, but music? I did see a commenter describe this genre as breakcore though. I'm not really sure how accurate that is. Here's a very brief sample with the volume turned very low. The Do Not Search Wiki article specifically mentions the visuals of the music video though. Honestly, the visuals aren't that bad. It kinda looks like a mid-2000s Adult Swim bumper, maybe a little odd and uncanny, but not mentally scarring. And fun fact, the Do Not Search Wiki listed this under the level 4 danger category, not level 3. I took the liberty of moving it up a little because in all honesty, it's not that bad. Japan's perception of how disturbing some things are is so interesting from a cultural standpoint. Yoshito Usui note. Usui was a well-known mangaka in Japan. He created the Cran Shinchan manga, which has an anime adaptation that still airs to this day. In 2009, Usui went hiking in Gunma Prefecture and never returned to his home in Kasukabe, which is in Saitama Prefecture. Usui's body was discovered about a week later at the base of Mount Arafune. His camera was still on him. The final photo he took was taken from the top of Mount Arafune. His funeral service was attended by thousands of devastated fans. How Usui fell exactly is concluded to simply be that he slipped and fell while trying to get some photos. The internet, as it often does, began to speculate and consider, however. This theory got so out of control that this letter eventually surfaced, claiming to be written by Usui himself. It was later found that this letter was fake. The creator of this letter admitted to this in a blog post, according to an article I read, though this article has no link source, and many fans were offended by the disrespectful nature of the letter. It certainly is a pretty messed up thing to do. The internet kinda sucks like that, though. Shabu-Shabu Production. In 2018, a 2015 video of a company president shoving his drunk employee's face into a pot of hot shabu-shabu had surfaced. It's a type of hot pot with meat and vegetables. It's usually cooked at the center of the table and the group just kind of picks from it. It's a group thing, kind of like Korean barbecue, I guess. With that said, the pot was likely very, very hot. The company was a Shibuya-based entertainment company. The victim was a 23-year-old man. He was also forced to consume alcohol. Following this video being leaked, the treatment of employees in this industry became kind of a hot topic. This is all I can really find surrounding this video and the details surrounding the victim. What became of the president, and more importantly, if the victim is okay, is not public knowledge to my personal knowledge, but if you can find anything, please let me know. At the very least, I do hope this company was investigated, though. Fluffy White Rabbit. A YouTube video that is surprisingly similar in visuals to a video made for children. Only it's not for children. Surprising, I know. The videos get more unsettling as they go on, but honestly, it's not that bad. Son Goku Sasaki. This one fits more under the gross out category than gore or just unsettling stuff in general. Basically, it involves a comedian named Son Goku Sasaki dressed like Goku, not the Dragon Ball character, the original one from Journey to the West, the book. He's best known for a video series where he eats insects. The comedian himself was born in 1974 and has been active in his pursuit of insect eating since 2005, though he was involved in wrestling prior to this. He starred in a DVD titled Insect Food Fighter Sasaki Son Goku's World's Strongest Bug Eater Decision Battle, and began a successful career in bug eating following this. Also, his kind of hero origin story is that a bully forced him to eat insects when he was young, and that's what kickstarted his interest in eating bugs. So, from my brother's computer. Supposedly, this is the contents of a computer that was found by the owner's sibling following the owner ending their own life. The sibling, a poster by the name of Kenma P, just kind of uploaded it to Nico Nico. This is just the backstory given, however. It's actually a mad video on Nico Nico with creepy images and music. And in typical Nico Nico screamer fashion, it has screams at the end. It's a vibe that's pretty similar to the Kotoha sisters video, and it's generally just very cryptic and intentionally unsettling. The whole backstory behind it is likely fake and intended for a dramatic effect. White Death Butterfly. A kind of, sort of, well-known webpage that gathered a lot of reaction videos a few years back. It initially looks like a normal mobile site from the mid-2010s, though when you go to the text under the site's profile, it discusses family trauma and concludes that the site was created by vengeful and unhappy ghosts. The text then turns blood red and you hear a scream with some scary images popping up. In short, it's a screamer mobile site that's meant to startle its visitors. There's not really much else to it. Kawamura Nomura. A 2000 murder of a woman and her daughter at the hands of two men employed by a used car dealership. Their names were Yukiya Kawamura and Tetsuya Nomura. It is very unfortunate that the latter person has the same name as the video game designer known for one of my favorite video games. I really hate that. These two men apparently held a grudge with a man known as H-san, and were trying to squeeze money out of him. When the first attempt failed, they decided to ambush H-san and his family. H-san himself did escape, but that left the wife and daughter who were unable to escape. This resulted in them being taken to the mountains of Seto City, where the victims and assailants lived, and then were later killed. Kawamura and Nomura were sentenced to death, and according to what I've read, were executed in 2009. Futoshi Matsunaga. An infamous Japanese serial killer who brainwashed, scammed, and killed multiple people. He murdered a total of 7 people, possibly more, between 1993 and 1998, but wasn't caught until 2002. There's a lot of details to this one, but Matsunaga was observed as using the same manipulation methods on his victims as Shoko Asahara, the leader of Shinrikyo, which allowed him to manipulate and torture many, many people. The whole thing began in 1982 technically, when Matsunaga became involved with a woman named Junko Ogata, while married to someone else. Junko was a former classmate. From here, Matsunaga and Junko began to con people. In the late 1980s, Matsunaga began running a futon business where he dedicated one floor of the 3-story building to shocking and torturing his employees. As the 1990s began, his crimes only worsened. It's estimated that 180 million yen was stolen by Matsunaga and Junko by the year 1992. It was in 1993 that the murders began officially. His first victim was a married woman who he convinced to leave her husband. This woman and one of her 3 children had died during their time with Matsunaga and Junko. During this time, he had claimed Junko was his sister. These deaths were never directly tied to Matsunaga, but it's confirmed that at least 11.8 million yen was defrauded from this woman. In late 1994, the couple began manipulating a man named Kumio Toraya as well as his daughter. Toraya admitted to Matsunaga that he had committed crimes in the past, and Matsunaga used that information to blackmail him. He later tortured and killed Toraya in 1996 and brainwashed the daughter to think that she killed him. Later on, Matsunaga manipulated and conned another woman and her daughter. He then held them captive and tortured them as well. This woman escaped by jumping out of a 2nd-story window. She was then found and taken to a mental hospital. The daughter did escape as well. Now, at this point, Junko decided to leave for work and not come back. Matsunaga then decided to fake his own to manipulate her to return. This is when he began to worsen his abuse on Junko following her return, and he began abusing Junko's family as well. He did this by raping Junko's sister and forcing Junko to torture her own father until he passed away from abuse. This sick, vile human being then continued further, forcing Junko's sister and brother-in-law to commit murder, and then later on forced Junko and her 10-year-old niece to kill her 5-year-old nephew. Later on in the year 2000, he then somehow convinced a woman to give him her kids and 20 million yen. In 2002, this mindless, tragic torture and abuse came to an end finally when Toraya's daughter, who was at this point 17 and still held captive, finally escaped and alerted authorities. Masaya was later sentenced to death, with Junko receiving life imprisonment. And that is it for level 3 of the Kensaku shite wa ikenai kotoba iceberg. I hope the topics in this one have proven to be interesting to you all. I did a little more deep dives and tried to flesh out and give more explanations to what I was talking about, unlike the last part where there wasn't really much to go off of, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, I'm sure you all are anticipating this, but the next tier of this iceberg is going to be pretty dark and it's just going to get worse. So the next video I want to plan on doing is part 1 of a different iceberg, which is the Japanese PSA iceberg I've been working on, just for a break from my mental sanity. I do still plan to make these Do Not Search iceberg episodes on a monthly basis, though. I'm also working on a documentary on the search for Saki Sanobashi, that supposed lost deep web anime, so if that also is something you're into and you dig that, look forward to it. That one's going to be a big project of mine, and I'm doing a lot of research on that one. I have so much planned, but those are the 2 big ones right now before I return to this and, you know. Anyways, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now! And of course, thank you so much to the people who support me on Patreon. This includes Airfire, Grand Tactician, Good with a Stain, Kevin, Jojo, Soko, Jordy Kirk, and Bishonen Knife.